Ex-Prêmio do Reino Unido Johnson, de Tai Fung é, na minha opinião, templo do bolinho.
Well, Minister Wu, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, the longest and most enthusiastic introduction I've had for a very long time. Li Ho, everybody.
Ni hao.
Very, very good to see you. And Mr. Chairman of the Prospect Foundation, Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée nationale, ministers, colleagues, friends, Ukrainian friends who are here. Thank you for this invitation. It's wonderful to be here in Taiwan at last, because until yesterday, I had only seen this country on my lockdown Peloton machine, which had a screen on the handlebars, giving me the illusion that I was cycling on the coastal path of Taiwan. And so for day after day, I was up on the top floor of number 10 Downing Street, puffing away on my exercise bike and watching the rain-slicked tarmac of Taiwan spool away in front of me. And I believed I was on this magic island. And I noticed everything. I noticed how beautiful it is. And I also noticed, by the way, how sheer, how vertical the cliffs are, and how difficult to attack, which is a point I think that deserves to be more widely noted. But I couldn't see any people, and I couldn't see the culture, and there were no clues as to Taiwanese society, except it all seemed very clean and very well organized. And it was irritating, because I wanted to find out about the incredible Taiwanese triumph, which I believe will be in the key technology of the 21st century. And so I've come here really as a pilgrim and as an admirer from a distance of Taiwan, and as a total believer in AI and an addict of ChatGPT. And look, I don't mind if ChatGPT occasionally makes things up or gets things wrong, because it's so polite and so good for my ego. And imagine having a little friend who tells you every day, "You had a brilliant and original idea. You're so clever," says ChatGPT. "Me love you long time," says ChatGPT. And it's all free. It's absolutely fantastic. And far from fearing the future, I look forward to the day when artificial intelligence goes through the protected bourgeois professions like a whirlwind of fire, torching the ridiculous, time-consuming, and, don't you agree, time-consuming, expensive nonsense conveyancing, planning applications, way leaves, all this legal stuff. All this stuff that's been used to hold people like me to ransom for generations. And look, I mean, don't worry, all the people who do these jobs, you know, the accountants, lawyers and so forth, they're going to get other jobs. It's going to be fine, because great technological change always ends up creating more well-paid jobs than it destroys. And we will solve the problem of social care workers, the shortage of social care workers which we have in our country, not with more immigrants, but with, I think, eventually ChatGPT androids, reminding the elderly to take their pills in a tirelessly polite and deferential manner. AI is going to help humanity in millions of ways that we can only guess at right now. It's the biggest advance in cognitive power I've seen in my lifetime. It has the potential to be bigger than the internet, bigger than Gutenberg, bigger than print itself. And all of it is made possible by Taiwan, isn't it? It's true. As I'm sure you all know, about 95%, perhaps even 100% now, of the sophisticated microprocessors that are necessary for AI are made here through the genius of Taiwanese manufacturers' atomic-level precision in lithography and etching. I remember when I first became Prime Minister of the UK in 2019, I said, look, you know, I was aware of this thing. I said, look, we've got to catch up with Taiwan. We can't lag behind. I said to my officials, how much would it cost for us to build a fabrication plant here in the UK? And they said £9 billion to begin with. I thought, that seemed quite a lot. But I said, okay, right. And then they said, but even if we could do it on a reasonable timescale, we could not guarantee that our chips would be as good as Taiwan's, because year after year, the Taiwanese are getting better and better. And year after year, these Taiwanese chips put new distance between themselves and their competitors. And so, of course, I gave up the idea of the UK government trying to compete with you. And I've come here because I know that there is a fundamental reason why this miracle is taking place on this island and nowhere else in the world, or at any rate, a unique combination of factors. There's a strategic vision of the Taiwanese government. We just heard just now from President Lai, the companies themselves who are driven by constant desire to improve. But then there's the whole commercial environment of Taiwan, the spirit that you notice as soon as you get here, which you can't detect on your number 10 peloton, as I say. And it seems to me that there is a zing and an energy and an optimism here because this is a free country where everyone has the equal protection of the law, where you don't have to worry that someone is going to steal your intellectual property because you have security of IP, and where you don't have to bribe some party apparatchik to get a contract because, on the whole, corruption here is very low. And that freedom, under the law, gives people tremendous confidence to invest and to take risks, commercial risks, that they might not otherwise take, and therefore to innovate. And I think that is why Taiwan leads the world in what is currently the world's most important technology. And so, of course, it follows that it's vital, not just for Taiwan, but for the West, for my country, for the whole world, that we protect that freedom here in Taiwan. Because I think I can safely say after 24 hours that we have a miracle here in this country. A Chinese country of 24 million people where the population feels free, feels different, and feels a strong sense of Taiwanese identity. And as far as I understand things, the majority of people do not, on the whole, want to declare that they are immediately a sovereign state independent of Beijing. Have I got that right? That seems to be the general, or a view of a large number of people, because they're aware of the sensitivities on the mainland. All they want, as we've heard from the President earlier on, all they want is to protect the status quo, to protect democratic self-government and the freedom that is at least partly responsible, I believe, for your success. And the sad thing about what is happening now is that it is not the people of Taiwan who are demanding unilateral constitutional change, is it? On the contrary, it's Beijing that is insisting without the slightest evidence that the current arrangements are somehow unsatisfactory. And every day, we see it on our TV screens. The People's Republic of China is trying to bully Taiwan into submission. And the PRC is sending boats into Taiwanese waters and planes into Taiwanese airspace, as if to remind the world, as though we needed reminding, of the might of the Chinese armed forces. And thereby signaling their intention by 2027, we're told, which is not very far away at all, to impose Chinese communist rule on this island, to eradicate democracy, to impose unification, and basically to run the place from Beijing. And they are signaling, and they've said expressly, that if necessary, they are willing to use force. And of course, around the world, people look at the relative size of the two entities, population size, Taiwan versus the People's Republic of China, 24 million versus 1.3 billion, or whatever it is. And they wonder how Taiwan could possibly survive in such a struggle. I mean, around the world they do. I don't think they worry about it here, do they? Anyway, do you think Taiwan, let me ask you seriously, do you think Taiwan can survive? Do you think this blessed island, this happy accident of history, can keep its free and democratic status. Do you? Yes. Good. Well, I'm here to assure you that I also believe that Taiwan can and Taiwan will, because it's plain to me that freedom is what the people of Taiwan want. And in the phrase of John Stuart Mill, you are lovers of your own liberty. And I don't believe that spirit will ever be crushed. And I say therefore to our friends in Beijing, and they should be our friends, by the way, that is a huge mistake to use intimidating and aggressive measures against Taiwan. And that publicly to contemplate violence is madness. Because the minute you use force to make a unilateral change to the status quo, you risk a chain of events that you cannot control, because that is, I'm afraid, what war always means. And we know, of course, that there are currently ambiguities in the official US position, the official British position, about what we would all do in the event of an attack on Taiwan. And that is for the very good reason that no one wants to get drawn into a discussion about a set of circumstances that we all passionately hope to avoid. But you also know, because you've seen it at this conference and previous versions of this conference, that there are already powerful, distinguished American politicians who are willing to speak up for the defense of Taiwan. And you know that there are many in Washington who are absolutely determined to prevent what America fears would be a major change in the balance of power in the Asia-Pacific region and in the configuration of the political configuration of the first island chain. Washington is passionately against that. And by the way, we all know that the United States has the ability, the sheer kinetic power, to change the course of any war on the planet. And we know in my country that if America did get engaged in some operation, then the chances are that they would ask for assistance from their closest partners, their AUKUS partners, for instance, France too, I have no doubt, Britain, Australia, and others. And you'll have heard the other day what our Defence Secretary, our Labour Defence Secretary, John Healey, said about the natural instinct of Britain to help its friends and allies. Now, I don't think he was talking about any particular scenario or how in particular Britain or any other European country would react. Because the truth is, right now, we don't know how it would look, how it would feel, what the occasion would demand from the Western powers. We're uncertain. And that is the whole point. That is how disasters begin. It is far easier to start a war than to predict how it will go. And you only have to go back 3 years to see how an act of war can trigger consequences that are entirely unforeseen and unintended. And there are clear differences between Taiwan and Ukraine. Analogies are not always accurate. But there are some lessons that can certainly be drawn. And when Putin invaded Ukraine in February 2022, he did not expect that by now Russia would have sustained 1 million casualties with 250,000 dead, did he? He didn't bargain for that. He didn't expect that after the colossal expense of Russian blood and treasure, he would still only control about 18% of Ukraine. Slava Ukraini, by the way. Slava Ukraine. He never expected that the Ukrainians would resist so heroically, or that they would receive such steadfast and generous Western support, started, by the way, by President Trump when he gave the Javelin missiles. The war has been appalling for the poor and blameless people of Ukraine. It's been a disaster for the world. It has also been a total catastrophe for Putin. He will go down in history not as the man who reunited the two most important parts of the former Soviet Union, not as the man who brought Ukraine back under Moscow's control. He will be remembered as the man who, by his arrogance and impatience, created in the hearts of Ukrainians an absolutely inextinguishable national feeling and desire for independence. Putin is not the man who restored Russian pride. He is the man who gambled on violence and lost, and believe me, he is going to lose. And I think in the Trump White House, the scales have now fallen from their eyes about Putin. And there is a real possibility that in just a couple of days, I think August the 8th, isn't it? Those countries, third countries that have been enabling Putin's war by buying his hydrocarbons, India and China, will be hit hard by secondary sanctions. And of course, I don't think any of those countries imagined for a second when this war began that they might in time be visited by that kind of punishment. And I dwell on the lesson of Ukraine, but not because the comparison is perfect. Clearly there are important differences. But to make this basic point that if you trigger violence, then you are firing a Sarajevo pistol that can lead to disaster for you and for the entire world. And so that's why it's so vital that we address this problem in a way that I think the people of Taiwan want. We heard it just now from the President. It's vital that we address it in the way that I think the people of Britain want and the world want. And that is to have peaceful dialogue across the Straits of Taiwan. And I think, we can be totally respectful, but we should ask our colleagues in Beijing to explain just why is it so essential to you to conquer Taiwan? When this island presents no conceivable threat to the mainland, is it really worth the risk? Is it really worth the risk, Beijing, when the consequences for the whole world could be so dire? And by the way, is it really necessary for every segment of the Chinese population to be ruled by the Chinese Communist Party? Can there not be places, beautiful places, that are differently Chinese? Of course there can. I think, by the way, it's a fantastic, I think it's an advantage for Beijing to have this innovative society, this society is incredibly fertile in technological developments right next door, investing massively, by the way, in China. And at the same time, we say to our Taiwanese friends, and the purpose of my mission here today, we say to our Taiwanese friends, we're with you. We stand with you because you are, as has been said, in the front line of the struggle against autocracies. We're with you for strategic reasons, because no one wants the chaos, confusion, and uncertainty that would follow such a change in the balance of the power. No one around the world wants that. No one wants war. And certainly no one wants Chinese domination of the first island chain. We're also with you, quite frankly, for economic reasons, aren't we? For your vital role in global supply chains, not least, as I say, in microprocessors. And all I can say in conclusion is that as China intensifies its pressure on Taiwan, I hope that we all, the West, America, the UK, all Europeans, will have the courage not to tiptoe away, not to be cowed by our desire to be deferential to Beijing, but to stand with Taiwan and to deepen our economic partnership. That's what we need to do right now as the pressure intensifies on Taiwan. And last night, I can tell you I've had a wonderful time in Taiwan so far. Last night I went out to a restaurant called Tai Fung, I think. It was absolutely rammed with people, and they were eating more different and more complicated types of dumplings than I've ever seen in my life. It was a sort of temple to dumplings, this place. It was devoted to the cult of the dumpling. And I met a guy there last night, and I'd met him before because actually, about 6 years ago, I helped to open the first Tai Fung. Have I got that right? Yeah. I happened to open the first Tai Fung in London, and they got me to make some dumplings very unsuccessfully. And I am thrilled to say that since then, there are now 3 such Tai Fungs in London, and Taiwanese influence is spreading the whole time. And UK-Taiwan trade, you should know, I am proud to say, is growing, and growing fast. £9 billion this year. Financial services, Johnny Walker, obviously seems to be very important. I noticed all sorts of different colour Johnny Walker, indigo label, mauve label. I don't know, I've never tasted any of these drinks, but they seem to be very popular here in Taiwan. Obviously very good for the Scottish economy. And we should intensify that economic partnership. And we are. I'm very pleased that the UK office here is well staffed and highly active. And in the end, folks, we're with you for the best reason of all, which is that we share your values. UK, Taiwan, we're 2 island democracies who understand that freedom is not just a wonderful thing because it helps you build a better silicon chip. Obviously it does, and Taiwan is the proof of that, right? I think I've made that argument. We're with you because we both understand that freedom is also a wonderful thing in principle, and it's a wonderful thing in itself. So thank you, Taiwan. Thank you for your bravery and for standing up for freedom in a very difficult and dangerous part of the world. You will have our support, and let us stand up for freedom together. Thank you all very, very much for having me at your conference today. Thank you.